By the dawn of 2026, the once unbreakable monolith of the Comanchero Empire has fractured into a chaotic mosaic of isolated cells and silent phone lines. What was once the most formidable syndicate in the Southern Hemisphere is now a cautionary tale of hubris, surveillance, and the relentless grind of international justice. Federal agencies across Australia and New Zealand have systematically dismantled the hierarchy, leaving the organization in a state of disarray that few could have predicted just a decade ago. The supreme commanders are either detained in high-security facilities or navigating strict release, conditions that effectively sever them from the brotherhood they once ruled. But to understand how this modern dynasty crumbled, we must first look back to the architect who built the foundation, and then, remarkably, walked away from it all. The story begins in the late 1960s, with William Jock Ross, the founding father and original supreme commander. Ross was not just a leader. He was the visionary who shaped the club's military-style structure and fierce territorial identity at a time when the biker scene was still finding its footing. Under his command, the club expanded rapidly, consolidating power and demanding absolute loyalty. However, this aggressive expansion inevitably placed them on a collision course with rival groups, culminating in the infamous 1984 Milperra conflict. This event remains one of the darkest days in the nation's history, a catastrophic Father's Day gathering that spiraled into a scene of intense devastation. The confrontation left multiple individuals having lost their lives and many more suffering severe injuries. It was a tragedy that shocked the public conscience and forced law enforcement to completely overhaul how they approach these organizations. The fallout was immediate and severe. The legal hammer came down, and Ross was convicted for his role in the events that transpired that day. Yet, it is what happened after his release that makes Ross's story so singular. In a world where few ever truly escape the gravitational pull of the lifestyle, the former Supreme Commander chose a path of total reinvention. Upon regaining his freedom, he publicly and privately severed all ties with the organization he created. He did not just fade into obscurity, he sought redemption through service. Ross reintegrated into society, eventually joining the New South Wales Rural Fire Service. Over the years, he rose through the ranks of the volunteer service, becoming a captain, a position of genuine trust and responsibility. It was a profound transformation. The man once feared as a warlord of the underworld was now the man his neighbors relied on to protect their homes from bushfires. Today, in his early 80s, Ross lives a quiet life in New South Wales. He is widely viewed as the only high-profile leader to have successfully navigated the transition from outlaw to citizen, leaving the chaos behind, while the modern iteration of his creation spirals further into the crosshairs of the law, as the new generation would soon learn. However, not everyone would be wise enough to walk away before it was too late. While Jock Ross represented the old guard, a leader who stood shoulder to shoulder with his men on local soil, the 2010s ushered in a radically different era of leadership. This new generation did not just want to rule a territory, they sought to build a global empire. At the center of this ambitious expansion was Buddle, a figure who would come to define the remote control style of modern organized crime, ascending to the role of national president, and later styling himself as the supreme commander of the world. Buddle presided over a period where the club aggressively expanded its footprint into illicit markets far beyond Australian borders. However, as domestic law enforcement tightened the net with specialized task forces and new legislation designed to disrupt club activities, the ground beneath Buddle began to shrink. In 2016, sensing the walls closing in, he made the strategic decision to flee the country. For years, he became a ghost, moving through various international safe havens and staying one step ahead of extradition efforts. But his physical absence did not equate to a loss of power. Investigators allege that from his exile, Buddle continued to pull the strings of the organization using sophisticated encrypted communication platforms. He managed the club's logistics, financial movements, and strategic decisions from thousands of miles away, creating an unprecedented challenge for authorities accustomed to fighting enemies they could see. This era of digital command also brought other key players into the spotlight, most notably Hakan Ayik, often referred to as Big Huxley. Though never a patched member, Ayik is regarded by intelligence agencies as one of the most significant figures in the club's orbit. He became the architect of what media dubbed the Aussie Cartel, a complex web of syndicates, facilitating large-scale logistics and financial transfers across continents. Ayik represented the corporate evolution of the underworld. He was a transnational organizer who allegedly utilized offshore structures and technology to insulate himself from the gritty reality of street-level operations. Working closely within this high-stakes sphere was Duax Ngakuru, known as Dax. A reported high-level associate, Ngakuru acted as a crucial bridge in this global network. Authorities claim he managed operations that spanned multiple countries, ensuring that the supply chains remained intact, even as pressure mounted back home. Like Buddle and Ayik, Ngakuru leveraged the anonymity of the digital age, directing vast resources without ever needing to appear in person. But the illusion of untouchability eventually shattered. The very technology that allowed them to operate remotely became a focal point for international policing cooperation. The endgame for this offshore triumvirate began to unfold rapidly. Buddle's years on the run ended with his detention overseas and subsequent deportation to Australia, where he now resides in a high-security facility in Victoria, his case looming large over the legal landscape. The dominoes continued to fall in late 2023, when coordinated international raids in Turkey led to the capture of both Hakan Ayik and Duax Ngakuru. Their arrests were hailed as a catastrophic blow to the syndicate's operational capacity, severing the vital arteries of the Aussie Cartel. Ngakuru now faces serious charges and potential deportation to his native New Zealand, while Ayik remains detained, his empire of encrypted signals dismantled. The age of the untouchable digital overlords had come to a sudden grinding halt. While the self-proclaimed architects of the empire attempted to orchestrate their grand designs from the safety of foreign villas, the reality on the asphalt in Australia was descending into volatility. The departure of the top-tier leadership created a dangerous power vacuum, leaving domestic commanders to navigate a landscape fractured by internal rivalries and relentless police pressure. In the state of Victoria, this burden fell largely on the shoulders of Mick Murray. A long-time president of the Melbourne chapter, Murray emerged as a stabilizing anchor during the chaotic period following Mark Buddle's flight. As national loyalties splintered, reports describe Murray as the figure who attempted to hold the loyalist factions together, acting as the steady hand, while the organization shifted toward more sophisticated, business-oriented operations. However, prominence in this world inevitably attracts the gaze of specialized task forces. Murray became a focal point for authorities, frequently referenced in court documents that mapped the Bikie Club's evolution. Due to strict current reporting restrictions, the full scope of the allegations against him cannot be detailed here. What can be confirmed is that as of early 2026, Murray is incarcerated in a maximum security facility in Victoria, believed to be the high-risk unit of Byron Prison. He remains in custody, awaiting trial regarding a grave 2019 incident that resulted in the loss of life. This upcoming legal battle is viewed as one of the state's most significant organized crime prosecutions, with proceedings expected to draw intense public scrutiny when they commence later this year. In New South Wales, the atmosphere was even more combustible, epitomized by the rise and fall of Tarek Zahed, known widely by his moniker, the Balenciaga Bikie. Due to his penchant for high-end fashion, Zahed served as the national sergeant-at-arms. His role placed him at the very heart of the club's enforcement operations, a position that carries inherent and extreme risks. Zahed's tenure was defined by the visceral danger of the Sydney underworld. In 2022, the glamorous veneer of his public image was shattered by a severe, targeted attack at a gym that shocked the city. The incident was a stark reminder of the stakes involved. While Zahed survived with life-altering injuries, including the loss of an eye, his brother tragically lost his life at the scene. Zahed's survival did not grant him immunity from the law. Authorities pursued him relentlessly, alleging involvement in significant intimidation and illicit trafficking activities. After being sentenced in 2024 to 3.5 years, he was expected to see freedom in early 2026. Yet, the revolving door of the justice system spun quickly. In October of last year, Zahed was rearrested during a major raid by New South Wales authorities. He now faces potential parole revocation and new charges, proving that in this life freedom is often just a temporary pause between periods of confinement. Amidst this turmoil, Allan Meehan rose to the position of national president. Meehan represented a shift toward high-visibility leadership, often using social media to project power, a strategy that drew both admirers and unwanted attention from detectives. His time at the top was marked by factional disputes that threatened to tear the club apart from the inside. Realizing that visibility had become a liability, Meehan has since gone to ground. Believed to be residing quietly in Queensland or New South Wales, he has adopted a ghost-like existence since 2023, stepping out of the spotlight to avoid the fate of his predecessors. Beyond the chaotic streets of Sydney and Melbourne, the story of the club's evolution turns to those who attempted to merge the underworld with the legitimate business elite. Ahmad Malkoon, known to his associates as J, represents this complex dichotomy. Once the president of the Victorian chapter, Malkoon was credited with revitalizing the club's presence in the city, before stepping down in 2013 to pursue a life that seemed worlds away from the biker clubhouses. He relocated to Dubai, reinventing himself as an international businessman and, surprisingly, a true crime author. In the glittering high-rises of the UAE, he cultivated powerful connections, even receiving an Arabian stallion as a gift from royalty, and amassed significant wealth, most notably through a savvy land deal in Melbourne's outer north that turned a sub-$1 million investment into a $26 million windfall. Yet, the shadow of his past proved impossible to outrun. Malkoon's life abroad was punctuated by extreme danger, including a narrow escape from a severe explosive attack on his vehicle in Athens in Faldegdas, 2019. Despite his attempts to curate a polished public image, recent reports indicate that his luck has finally run out. He is currently believed to be detained in the United Arab Emirates, with Australian consular officials providing assistance to his family, a stark contrast to the life of luxury he had built in exile. Across the Tasman Sea, another franchise was rising and falling under the command of Basilica Nafahu. Deported from Australia, Nafahu did not view his removal as an end, but as an opportunity to expand. He established the New Zealand chapter, rapidly organizing a sophisticated network that mirrored the club's Australian operations. Authorities described his tenure as a masterclass in transnational logistics, linking the two nations through complex financial channels and distribution routes for controlled substances. However, his empire was dismantled in a high-profile 2021 trial that laid bare the surprising inner workings of the chapter. Nafahu was handed a 10-year sentence and, as of 2026, remains incarcerated with repeated denials of parole, signaling the judicial system's refusal to grant leniency to the organization's leadership. The final piece of this global puzzle fell into place with the capture of Raymond Ray Silly, once the state commander for Western Australia and described by police as a regional kingpin. Silly oversaw vast distribution networks before fleeing Australia in 2019 amidst intensifying scrutiny. For 6 years, he was a phantom, allegedly managing syndicate logistics from the shadows of Java, Southeast Asia. His run ended in February 2025, when he was apprehended by authorities, sending shockwaves through the criminal underworld. His arrest marked the closure of one of the last remaining loops in the dragnet, with extradition proceedings now aiming to bring him back to face justice for serious outstanding charges. As we survey the landscape in 2026, the picture is clear. The Comanchero brand, once a symbol of untouchable power, is now fractured beyond recognition. The historic leadership is neutralized, either through the wisdom of walking away, like Jock Ross, or the inevitability of incarceration, like the modern commanders. The Iron Brotherhood has been dismantled by a combination of its own ambition and the patient, relentless work of law enforcement. Whether the club can evolve again remains to be seen, but for now, the empire that sought to rule the world is ruling nothing but cell blocks.